windowsill. Been so lonesome chasing that morning chill. Oh, little red bird, open your mouth and say, been so lonesome, I just about flown away. So long now I've been out in the rain and snow, but winter's come and gone. A little bird told me.
Hello and welcome to the How I Healed podcast. I am joined today by my co-host Mary Lou Singleton, who is a family nurse practitioner, herbalist, and apprentice-trained home birth midwife. She has been caring for the health of New Mexican families for over 25 years. Mary Lou believes all healthcare modalities, from allopathic medicine to energy work and everything in between, have healing potential. That healing is always an individual journey to be supported by community, and that when it comes to healing, effectiveness is the measure of the truth. She is a critic of the pharmaceutical industry and the mainstream medical industry, which promotes drug dependence and chronic disease maintenance rather than healing. She believes healing is always possible and co-created the How I Healed podcast to share stories of healing, hope, and recovery.
Thanks, Jocelyn. I'm Mary Lou, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Jocelyn Macdonald, who is an artist and storyteller. She is enlivened by the infinite potential of humans to heal and helps others walk this path through her art and music. Her healing practice focuses on making and finding meaning out of the crises and major choice points of our lives. She offers one-on-one support through coaching and archetypical astrology and tarot. She specializes in assisting with psychedelic integration and pharmaceutical cessation. On this episode of How I Healed, I will be interviewing my good friend and co-host, Jocelyn Macdonald, who will be sharing with us her story of how she healed from rheumatoid arthritis and a host of other physical and mental illness conditions. Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi, Mary Lou.
So good to be doing this with you. I'm really excited.
It's the answer to so many prayers. I've been wanting to find a way to get this information out to people that it is possible to heal from the condition of being addicted to going to the doctor and getting medicated for your life. I think that's really what it comes down to. I want to encourage people to just believe that healing is possible, that to be healthy does not require constant intervention as much as it requires a commitment to to self-expression and self-care.
Wonderful. Can you tell us about your story? When were you diagnosed with autoimmune arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, and what was that like, and how did you heal?
Yeah, so it all began coincidentally at the beginning of my Saturn return period. So I was entering the shadow of my Saturn return around age 27. Gosh, it's so difficult to pinpoint. Okay, so I had started to feel pain in my body that was very unfamiliar to me about maybe 2 or 3 days after I had gotten a hormonal IUD installed, which was, by the way, the most painful experience of my life up to that point. And, I blamed my symptoms on air travel. I had gone, you get swollen joints when you do planes and stuff. But the pain persisted, not to mention all the pain that was in my uterus from this foreign object that was, not supposed to be there. The entire point of which getting installed was to heal from the endometriosis I had been diagnosed with. So, the logic was end your period and you'll end your endometriosis. This also took place about 4 months after I had had my tonsils removed. So there was like a period of 25 years where I never had really any medical intervention. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I got health insurance, things started to go wrong with me, starting with my tonsils needing to be taken out because I was told, you get strep throat too often. And that was when I was 27. And then it was when I was 28 that I got this IUD installed and pretty much immediately started to have rheumatoid arthritis symptoms. So sorry, go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? Were you
Yes.
miserable with with your tonsils, like had you yourself had the idea you thought you needed to have your
Oh God,
tonsils
no.
removed?
No, I didn't
Interesting.
even know, because I had never had access to health insurance as a child. I didn't know that it was not okay to get strep throat once a year. And I don't know that that is okay. I think that some of us definitely are more predisposed towards certain types of disease expression than others. And for me, it has often been related to my throat chakra. And as an astrologist, I now put that in the context of my Mars is in Taurus. Taurus rules the throat. Mars influences certain types of disease expression that we get. And so, it was not uncommon for me to have throat issues, whether it was strep throat or different coughs and voice issues as a child. And when I got access to insurance, and I went in for, to get antibiotics, they were very concerned that the tonsils were the way that the strep throat was expressing itself, and I had an abscess in my tonsil, which I can't. Yeah, I think that was before they suggested getting the tonsillectomy. Was the abscess preceded that? But I was, one of 0.03% of side effects after I had my tonsillectomy. I had a huge complication and had to have a second surgery where like they cauterized the inside of my throat on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, wow.
When I was 27. And so it was very dramatic in the kind of lead up to the surgery, where they were really encouraging me, like, you really shouldn't have tonsils anymore. Tonsils are completely unnecessary. You don't want to have them because they are the cause of your endless cases of strep throat. And that to me now sounds absolutely psychotic, because the tonsils do not cause strep throat. That's just not true. And like,
Right.
to have major surgery like twice, to have my tonsils and adenoids removed as an adult, which is unbelievably painful, by the way, but not as painful as getting an IUD.
Interesting. Well, you get anesthesia for major surgery, and women are
Yeah.
just supposed to lie back and take it with an IUD insertion.
Yes. And so the tonsils are a big part of your lymph system and an important part of your immune system. So when the doctors were encouraging me to believe that they're vestigial organs, I really took that on faith. And now that it's already happened and they're already gone, I've done a fair amount of research into the correlation between having your tonsils removed and developing autoimmune disorders. Also done a lot of research on the development of autoimmunity after getting a hormonal IUD, because silicone toxicity, the IUD is made of silicone, and also these synthetic hormones disrupt your natural hormone cycles, and they can really influence this idea that when doctors describe autoimmunity as your body attacking itself, that's a process that can be triggered by the presence of synthetic hormones and the estrogenic effect of silicone in your body. So those were not the only things that I was dealing with. I was also dealing with, over a decade of vegetarianism, a lifetime of like religious cult programming, low self-esteem, multiple instances of sexual violence in early life that really, really did not give me a good sense of my boundaries and my own bodily integrity. Like, didn't have a good relationship with my own bodily integrity because of these experiences. And so there were a lot of spiritual components and a lot of medical components that might have led me to developing an autoimmune disorder, or 5. But when I tested for the disease, and they do these tests where they're testing for something called rheumatoid factor, and the presence of C-reactive protein in your blood, which is like a state of heightened autoimmunity, a state of heightened immunity. Like, it's basically a type of immune cell. And so if you have more of these immune cells, it's saying that your body's immune system is working harder than the average person's immune system. That isn't an indicator of disease. When you actually break it down, like, these are not, testing positive for these things it's not fair to say that is a hard and fast indicator of autoimmunity. And doctors will also make that like really obscured when you read the packets for the medications for these diseases, because it wasn't just rheumatoid arthritis. I was also diagnosed with Sjogren syndrome. I told you I had endometriosis, I had psoriasis, like autoimmune psoriasis. And I don't know, I think there was a couple other obscure ones that I don't even remember. But, you know, in the packets for these medications, it will say doctors do not understand the cause of rheumatoid arthritis, and they do not know why this medication works to treat it, but they do know that it is an effective treatment for the symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis. That's something that I read in the packet for my methotrexate, which is the first drug that everybody who has rheumatoid arthritis gets put on methotrexate, which is also used as a cancer treatment. Plaquenil, which is used as an anti-malarial, and that's a crazy drug. Several other disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs that I was given, which are essentially usually pills, like Plaquenil and methotrexate. And then they upgrade you when those don't work, and they never work.
Right.
Because for many reasons, most of the time they don't work. Then you get upgraded to biologics. These are like anti-tumor necrosis factor drugs that include stuff like Enbrel or Humira. And, you know, Mary Lou, as a actual medical professional, I'm sure you can speak to this to a far greater extent. But the purpose of these drugs, which you inject into your body every 2 weeks or every month, depending on what the drug is to suppress your entire immune system. And so I began with, you know, the experience in my body of joint pain upon waking or going to bed. I had a lot of stiffness, and it just got worse to like actually being able to see the inflammation in the small joints of my hands and toes. And then I suddenly found myself like having a great deal of difficulty tying my shoes and, you know, doing my own dishes without dropping the dishes and breaking them. It got to a point where the pain was so unbearable, I was considering self-harm. And, you know, that's a whole nother story, but I had a long history of self-harm when because in my early life, my my main health concern was mental health, was depression and anxiety. And so when I started to think about harming myself, I called the doctors and I was like, I demand to be seen. And they had told me, you know, it's like a 6-month wait period to see a rheumatologist, even though you've been diagnosed as having a severe or a severely high high level of C-reactive protein and rheumatoid factor in your blood. And so I was like, I'm gonna kill myself if you don't see me, which is hilarious now because I know this is such a manipulation tactic that people use. But I was desperate. I was really on the edge. And so, you know, they brought me in and had full body imaging, and they shot cortisol into all of my joints, which permanently damaged all the joints that got the cortisol. My skin turned deathly white. My muscles atrophied. I could see through my skin anywhere that the injection had taken place. I tried all these drugs that were truly mental. Like the methotrexate would cause such severe diarrhea that I couldn't leave the house. I'm sorry to say this. It's graphic, but I could never leave the house unless I knew how many bathrooms there would be at the place that I was going and how easily accessible they would be to me. I couldn't keep food down. No one mentioned to me that I should probably stop being a vegan and vegetarian. That part of my side effects from the medication had to do with like lack of nutrients. You can't be shitting your brains out every day and only eating tofu and get by. None of the DMARDs worked. They put me on multiples of them. I got on Plaquenil, which is a drug that will cause your retina to separate from your eye. So you have to get monitored every 6 months for eye exams to make sure your retinas are not detaching and you're going permanently blind. I was put on a drug that I don't even remember the name of it, but they told me that, you know, they made sure that I wasn't sexually active with the possibility of getting pregnant. I told my doctor that I was a lesbian. It was nothing to worry about. She never mentioned to me that the drug that I was taking would cause a baby to be born without a brain or a spinal cord, which, like, I wasn't trying to get pregnant, so that was immaterial. I couldn't have gotten pregnant, so that was immaterial. But just knowing that there's a drug that exists that would cause a fetus to develop without a spinal cord and brain connection or a functioning brain, scared the living shit out of me 2 years later after I'd been on this drug for 2 years and found out like that's what they were giving me.
Most likely the methotrexate that blocks folic acid, which is necessary for central nervous system development. But what they're not mentioning is what is it doing to you and your
Yeah.
central nervous system, which is
Right.
also dependent on folic acid and folate. That and from what I've seen, like you're saying, methotrexate never actually gives people a good response when they have these
no.
horrible conditions.
Right.
It's just a step that the insurance companies require to get to the
Yes.
expensive medications.
To the expensive medications.
Mhm.
And that's where the real treatment actually is. And so I eventually got on Enbrel and I experienced complete remission of my symptoms. I had no idea what Enbrel was made of or what was in it, or, you know, it has to be refrigerated and you take it every couple weeks, you inject it into your fatty tissue. And so I had this really, you know, I had this great and intense grief when it occurred to me that because of the medications that would keep me healthy, I could never travel to, say, a country where I would have to take multiple buses and end up in a hostel in the jungle where they didn't have a refrigerator. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a grief for me in knowing that I would always have to have a corporate job that would allow me to stay insured in such a way that I could afford these drugs, which were, you know, multiple thousands of dollars per dose. The worst part about being on Enbrel was that it did suppress my immune system. I'm not sure now where I stand on immune systems or germ theory or how disease really passes from one person to another, if it does. But I do know that at the time, I still carried the belief that disease is contagious and, you know, spreads virally or through the air. And so I was getting sick at least once a month. I'm talking like reliably getting flus and colds if somebody looked at me funny. Meeting my baby nieces and discovering that like when other people would be around babies, they get, you know, they get sickness all the time because babies get sick all the time. I would actually be like knocked the fuck out. I would be flattened when I was around my sister's kids and they got me sick. And so it was just like, I am really setting myself up to be locked into this cycle of getting really sick and being completely useless in life, like being disabled by these medications, or I get off the medications and I'm so disabled I can't do my own dishes or tie my own shoes. And that really concerns me, you know, like that really makes me think. Like at that time I was, you know, 29, 30. I have no life. I'm not like other people. I'm not like other women my age. I'm not able-bodied. I'm a mess. You know, I can't have hopes and dreams anymore beyond staying healthy, because that has to be my baseline hope and dream, not travel the world or you know, become a famous novelist or whatever the fuck was my current dream at that time. It had to be just stay healthy and try to stay functional.
Were you experiencing relief from the joint pain, the dry eyes, the rheumatological symptoms you were having when you took the Enbrel?
When I did take the Enbrel, I did have relief. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you, they got me on these $600 eye drops for the Sjogren syndrome. Can you even imagine?
So for people who are listening who might not know what Sjogren's is, do you want to describe that?
Oh yes, thank you. It is when now I'm putting in scare quotes, when your body attacks its own mucous membrane, so you can't produce tears or saliva, or if you're a woman, you know, your vagina would be dry. Basically, yeah, the eye drops. Oh, go ahead.
And also the synovial fluid in the joints as well, right? It's sort of attacking all the fluid producing cells.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the medical understanding of that symptom set.
Yes, exactly. And so they had me on these weird mouth rinses and these $600 eye drops. And it was also just hilarious to me because, you know, if somebody bills you for $600 eye drops before they bill you for the $12,000 injection, then you have to pay the $600 eye drops because you have to meet your $5,000 deductible. But if they bill you for the $12,000 injection first, then you get, the company has some kind of payment deal where you get a special card, and then they meet your deductible, and then everything else that year is free. So I would have these crazy arguments with the insurance providers on the phone, being like, they put the eye drops in first. Like, fuck you, I'm not paying for these eye drops. Like, I can't afford this shit, like.
Right. Very few people would be getting access to these medications if it weren't for the insurance system,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Were you getting $600 a month relief from those eye drops and those mouth rinses, or do you feel like just like a Visine or eye drops from Walgreens would have given you about the same degree of relief?
I mean, I think that introduces for me another question, which is like, is it fun to be an addict to eye drops? And the answer for me is like, no, I don't want to take eye drops every day. And because I thought that my body was attacking my tear ducts, and my tear ducts would be permanently damaged if I didn't take these eye drops, of course I was getting $600 worth of benefit from them, because without them, I'll, never cry again. I'll have like gingivitis from my dry mouth or whatever. But I haven't taken them in over 10 years, and I cry. I cry a lot. Like, I cry all the time. And I think honestly, like, I was a pothead. Like, I always had dry mouth. And now that I don't smoke weed every day, I don't get dry mouth,
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. Yeah.
But the weed didn't heal your rheumatoid arthritis before? The vegan diet and the marijuana did not heal.
The combination of
Interesting.
Yes, can you believe it? Oh my gosh, I would drink CBD oil by the bottle, and it would just not even touch me. And I'm not like anti medical cannabis, because it has been helpful for pain symptoms, but you would have to be high all the time. You would have to be like, that like Rick Simpson oil that they give to cancer patients. You would have to be like flattened for the pain of, I would describe my pain when I had rheumatoid arthritis symptoms as my body feels like a balloon and my joints feel like shattered glass. So it's like a balloon full of shattered glass that's just like rubbing together, all the little glassy bits just breaking apart and threatening to burst through this little balloon. Like, that's the experience in my fingers and toes when I had the worst of my symptoms. And
that's terrible.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to be high all the time, but it did not help. It did not make the pain go away.
But the Enbrel did, to a certain degree.
Oh yeah, it flattened it. It was like I was a different person.
How long did that relief last? Did it cure you? Did you eventually reach a point where it wasn't helping anymore?
Yeah, I think I was on Enbrel for 2 years, and I started to get really concerned right away by how often I was getting sick. And so I would, I was taking the Enbrel like described every month, or Humira is 2 weeks and Enbrel is 1 month. I think that's how it works. So I would take it 1 month, and then I would say, I wonder if I can get by with like 5 weeks or 7 weeks or 10 weeks. I would just keep spreading out between doses until eventually I was like, I think I can get by without taking these injections. So why don't I just continue with acupuncture and medical marijuana and maintaining a positive attitude, and see how far I can get with the, not actually injecting the Enbrel. And I would stockpile it. I would have the Enbrel in the refrigerator, continue to receive it, but not take it. And part of that was that my biggest fear in life has always been getting fired, and being impoverished by that, and then becoming homeless. And that's like my big wound in life, is my fear of being poor. So I was so afraid of getting fired that was the other reason I couldn't take the Enbrel. I had to have at least a 6-month supply, so that should I get fired for my corporate job, I would have plenty of time to find another corporate job, so that I could keep this supply of drugs. So at a certain point, I left Seattle and moved to DC, and the symptoms came back really, really badly after, let's say, maybe 6 months of doing what I was doing of like really spreading out the doses to maybe even getting like 2 to 3 months in between injections. And they put me back on DMARDs. It wasn't methotrexate again. It was the one that makes your fetus born a monster. And although apparently methotrexate is that too. So I got onto Humira. And again, it was immediate relief. It was just shocking to me. I went from one day, being disabled, like couldn't sleep through the night without waking up 15 times. Anytime I had to get up, I would be so stiff that I was hobbling to the bathroom. I stopped wearing shoes with laces a really long time ago. Just completely unable to live life, but kind of faking my way through it. And I got on Humira and I was out dancing the next night.
That quickly, you had a response that quickly?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It was like the next night was New Year's Eve and I stayed out until 2 a.m. dancing.
Wow. I'm just seeing the Humira ad across my television.
Yeah.
And there's Jocelyn dancing. Ask your doctor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you 30 and love dancing? Get Humira. Yes.
Right. Okay. So you had a good response to that. And then what was your process on Humira?
Yeah, well, as I was, I'm on Humira and every time the insurance billing has to take place, the difficulty in getting the reimbursement was, it was always a nightmare. I would have to call the insurance company. They would say, oh, well, we cannot pay for your Humira because your doctor has to pre-authorize it. And I'm like, but they prescribed it. Isn't that a pre-authorization? And they're like, no, we need more paper, essentially. Like the way your doctor just prescribed it is incorrect. So, you need to go back to the specialist, which is going to be another $600 visit, and get these done right. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like constant negotiation with insurance companies, drug manufacturing companies. AbbVie, in this case, is the company that provides insurance support. So they pay your copay. And then you only pay $5 for every injection instead of 10,000. So I really didn't like that. I really didn't like being surveilled. I didn't like that I had to go to the doctor every 3 months and get full body x-rays and blood work. I really did not like the waiting rooms and the process of being on the phone with all these nutcase people that like did not give a shit if I lived or died. And they just are like looking to get their money from me or from my insurance provider. It doesn't matter which. What really so I had this big self-esteem issue, especially when I would look at the insurance billing, because it occurred to me like, okay, if I just look at the meds that I'm on for arthritis, I'm not even talking about the $600 eye drops, the blood work every 3 months, the full body x-rays every 6 months, the specialist visits to dermatologists, rheumatologists, the gynecologist, the ophthalmologist, all the different specialists that I was going to. We don't even need to look at their labor costs, just the medications. They had billed to my insurance company by 2019 $111,000. And so it occurred to me like, oh, I'm worth more dead than alive, because even with a corporate job, I make a little bit over $60,000. So like there's a huge deficit here where my labor does not amount to how much work it takes for other people to keep me alive. And so that really hurt my self-esteem. And it, like I said, it really made me feel unfree. It made me feel unfree because I couldn't travel, and not that I even travel that much, but if I wanted to, what if I wanted to? What if I got a wild hair and a influx of money and I just wanted to go to Patagonia? So what really shifted everything was when the pandemic began, and I was told that I was exceptionally high risk, and for me to go outside and expose myself to this deadly virus that no one understood how it spreads and how quickly it was killing people, that I was exposing myself to certain death. And at that point, what was I, 32 or something, I just thought like, no, this isn't making sense. Like, I don't want this experience. I don't want to be high risk. I don't want to be treated like an elderly person that needs to be institutionalized because because breathing air is too dangerous for me. And so that really got me thinking, there has to be a way for me to get off these drugs. I had also really, really deeply considered during the pandemic quitting my job and walking the Appalachian Trail. I know a big part of me healing on my healing journey throughout having arthritis, regardless of what medications I was taking, was pursuing things that made me feel good about my joints and building my self-esteem around what capabilities my body does have. And so in 2018, what that looked like for me was beginning to play the banjo and learning to use those fine motor skills in my hands. I also started rock climbing. So I was using my fingers to lift my entire body weight up a sheer rock face. And so I had started to develop much more confidence that my body is not disabled, that I am vital, and that like a vital life force flows through me, and that I'm capable of healing. So even though I was still on those crazy drugs, I had started to challenge the belief that I was disabled. And so when COVID started to unfold and we were told that, high risk people were certainly going to die, I just thought, well, I don't want to be high risk anymore, because the only thing that makes me high risk is my chemically suppressed immune system. So I just have to find a way to not be arthritic anymore. And also I have to find a way to not be around people. And since people are the danger here. And that's what got me on the kick of, oh, I want to hike the Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail does not come with refrigerators. So if you want to take an injectable medication, you're going to have to, ship it to different hostels and have them keep it in their little refrigerators. And as I tried to think about the logistics of what it would mean to be a person of arthritis and hike from Georgia to Maine, it just landed like, I'm not a Capricorn, okay? Like I can't plan like that. Like I don't have the skill to plan out meticulously where I'm going to be every 2 weeks so that I can inject myself with this shit. So that was another reason that I was like really convinced I had to get off the drugs. And then at another point in the pandemic, supply chains started to fail. And at that time I was working in my day job. I was working in marketing for the automotive industry. So, a lot of people who know me as an artist and a writer have no idea what my day job was. And it was in selling cars. So when cars couldn't be sold anymore because computer chips could not be ordered because the entire world was shut down, they started laying off people in the auto industry left, right, and center. And so I was again confronted with my worst fear of my life, which has always been, you're going to be homeless, you're going to be unemployed, and no one is going to be able to support you. You're certainly not going to be able to support yourself. So you better start stockpiling again, and you better start looking at an industry where you can't get fired. Your job is not in the hands of like global market forces, because it really looks like the end of the world is nigh, whether it's COVID or global climate change or whatever it is. Like the car industry is not the security and safety net that it once was. So it's time to look again and cast a wider net. And so it was around that time I started stockpiling medications again, and I quit my job and went to woodworking school to become a furniture designer and builder. I started to stretch out my injections again, longer and longer. Am I like rambling? Am I answering your question, or is that okay?
It's all fascinating. It's always good to hear someone's healing story.
Okay.
I do have a couple of questions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
One is just to get the timeline straight. At this point,
Yes.
well, I know that you're very critical of hormonal birth control. When did that come
Yes.
into your consciousness, and when did you have your IUD removed?
Okay, so I got my first introduction to hormonal birth control, I think in high school. They had me on it because of my acne and my endometriosis. And I don't think that I have endometriosis, but they never, they couldn't possibly like take the effort to diagnose, because it's basically just like, oh, you have unbearable period cramps and you shit and vomit every time you have a period, and it makes you like lose time at school. That's endometriosis. We don't need to like confirm it in any other way. So birth control will make your period go away and you'll be fine again. And then I went to college and got the Nuva ring, and I experienced in college really strong symptoms of depression. I think that were largely, I had symptoms of depression before hormonal birth control, but my symptoms definitely intensified on birth control, and I became very disconnected from my sense of desire or like eros at all. So when I was on the NuvaRing, I was having sex with people to whom I knew I wasn't really attracted, and to whom I didn't like experience any real pleasure. But it was like college, and when you're in college, you have sex. So like, I was a good Christian girl my whole life. Like, I need to make up for lost time. Like I have to like explore my sexuality in scare quotes. Like all the rest of these people, like come out as bisexual, fuck everybody I can.
Yeah.
And so I did.
It's empowering, right? That's
Yeah,
what we're
super
told.
empowering. Yeah.
Totally. Suppress your fertility, turn off your actual libido and desire that is absolutely connected to your hormonal cycle, which we're going to turn off. And then, be sexually accessible to men and women, right?
Yeah, and so, in that sexual accessibility, I had even more instances of sexual violence, which continued to allow me to encourage me to disassociate my brain from my body and my experience of eros. So I ended up having like a ton more rape and sexual assault experiences because I was completely dissociated and had no boundaries and was, truly letting myself be taken advantage of. By the time I had gotten a hormonal IUD, I wasn't even having sex with men anymore. I was out as a lesbian and completely, it was just to treat this quote unquote endometriosis and these experiences of really bad cramps. I had already been critical of the hormonal birth control because I associated it with depression and with having sexual experiences that were deeply unsatisfying and in fact like obviously self-harm, no different than my cutting addiction from when I was in high school. And so the IUD was in for less than 5 months. I was calling the nurse on a weekly basis being like, should I have collapsed in my kitchen because the pain of my IUD is so excruciating? I'm not even bleeding right now. I'm not even on my period and I'm having cramps so bad that I collapsed. Is that normal? And the nurse is like, well, the doctor should have told you this, but it takes a lot of people at least 6 months to adjust to having an IUD. But then your period will stop and all this will go away. I mean, that's what they kept promising me was that like in a few more months, your period will stop and you'll be okay. It didn't occur to me at that time that your period shouldn't stop because your period is a sign of your health and vitality if you're female. And it's a really crucial part of like the experience of living. It's beautiful. It's enjoyable if you're not in pain. It's actually like this opportunity to explore beyond the veil. The veil is so thin, it's so accessible for you to like get into a theta state and be a fucking witch and a fairy in the woods when you're bleeding. Like I didn't know that. You should like having your cycle whether you're ovulating, luteal, or menstruating. I wasn't ready to say that. I was still in a place of like really fighting my body and being in resistance to the natural cycle of being a female human.
So you had this IUD removed at some point.
Oh yeah, almost right away.
Mainly because of the side effects of the IUD, not yet connecting it to the development of the autoimmune process or what was being. Okay.
No, it was removed because it was causing me so much pain, but it was definitely very early on in my RA journey that I got deep down rabbit holes on internet forums of women talking about rheumatoid arthritis. 70% of patients who have autoimmune disease are female. And so these forums where people are talking about their autoimmune disease and they're talking about what triggered it, what they think triggered it. So many women talked about getting silicone breast implants and then immediately getting RA. And so, they would talk about silicone toxicity, and the hormonal IUD is a silicone little thingy-majiggy. And, it's not a very big thingy-majiggy. It's, maybe an inch of silicone. And so I was like, could that give you silicone toxicity? And then went further down the rabbit hole of the connection between IUDs, synthetic hormones, whether it's IUDs or pills, and RA. And so many women talked about having been on hormonal birth control for, decades and then developing not just RA, but other like full body system shutdown diseases, because it's, it turns out all connected.
Right. It is all connected. connective tissue disorders.
Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, so at some point you had a real paradigm shift that,
Oh God, yeah.
okay, so and it sounds like that was gradual. You were understanding you didn't want to be dependent on big pharma. You have this, this core fear of poverty that was leading you to
Yes.
stockpile meds. Those two things were causing you
Yes.
to not use the medications as directed, to spread out your doses.
Yeah.
And then COVID happens and you're realizing you're more vulnerable to everything.
Yes.
Because you're suppressing your body's defense system.
Mhm.
But what happened then? Because I know you had a
Major paradigm
major
shift.
paradigm shift, right?
Well, the seeds for that started way earlier. I would say in early childhood, because I grew up in a religious cult. I grew up in a cult, and then when we left the cult, we joined evangelical Christianity, where we did faith healing, laying hands on each other. I laid hands on other little kids and healed them of tummy aches and all sorts of things. So I had a belief that faith could heal, and that, if you want to take Jesus out of it and just look at it as mindset, could heal from a very early age. And so, when I got to college and decided I was an atheist and a communist, I rejected God and Jesus and threw all of those beliefs out the window and decided they were unscientific. But I'm a Pisces rising, and that's just not it. It's just not it for me. Like, there was a deep spirituality that was waiting to be witnessed in myself and waiting to be accepted and integrated. And so, I wouldn't tell other people that I was secretly a mystic and secretly thinking, there's got to be a spiritual reason that I have arthritis in the first place, and therefore there has to be a spiritual way to cure it. And it wasn't just with the arthritis, it was also with the depression and just all of these like these illnesses that I identified with. So in probably 2018, I did ayahuasca for the first time. In order to do ayahuasca, I had to get all of my psych meds out of my system, because that can cause serotonin poisoning and kill you. So I had to get off all my antidepressants. And so in order to do that, I had to, really stop believing in myself as a depressed person. I had to really interrogate this idea that I'm a person of depression, and that, like, depressive waves are inevitable due to a chemical imbalance in my brain rather than the conditions of my life and how I respond to them. So that was the first realization when I got off those antidepressants and I did a bunch of psychedelics.
What were you taking and for how long in terms of
I
psychiatric
was
medications?
taking Paxil, Seroquel, Cymbalta, not all at the same time, but over time I had taken all of these, and some of them I had taken at the same time. And then I got onto Lamictal, which is an anti-seizure medication that's used to treat bipolar disorder. Seroquel is an antipsychotic that's used for people with major depression and psychotic episodes. In addition to a sleep aid, I have had insomnia bouts since I was as early as I can remember. I mean, I remember as soon as I started sleeping alone, I remember having to go back and ask my mom, to help me, pray over me, and get God to help me to sleep, because I would really stay up all night. I was addicted to Ambien at one point, addicted to Lunesta at another point, all while taking, Lamictal, Cymbalta, Wellbutrin, and Paxil and Seroquel at different times. When I had I tried to kill myself in college, and so I was I was given a handful of psych meds to keep me basically from feeling anything. I was on lithium at one point. Yeah, so basically just anything to numb the emotions and just like completely disassociate myself. I was prescribed it and took it at different times.
Well, so you were taking some cocktail of these medications.
Yes.
And something drove you to want to try ayahuasca. Was that
Yes.
a desire for
What
healing?
drove me to want to take ayahuasca was probably having, been a stoner for 10 years and taking San Pedro and acid and mushrooms and loving getting high. And I definitely think that ayahuasca called me. I think that she whispered to me over the years, for at least 5 years, I would hear mentions of this shamanic experience that I really craved. But like, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Like, I wanted to get fucked up. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So yeah, I had no idea how spiritually enlightening the experience of doing ayahuasca would be. I thought I did, but I was not prepared for the way that it took several years for the downloads of my first ayahuasca journey to be fully absorbed into my somatic experience. And they have since then, further shamanic experiences have also dictated a lot of these changes. I really think that like psychedelics have been incredibly expansive for me in releasing a lot of these beliefs about who I am and how diseased I am and how I carry disability or brokenness because of the family I was born into, the cult that I was born into, the poverty that I was born into. These beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we're addicted to believing because they form our ego. Ego
Absolutely.
death has that effect on you. It kills these addictive beliefs that like I am this thing that I've said I am.
Well, and these addictive beliefs are being relentlessly marketed to us as well from all sides, which I'm not even sure what all sides means anymore, but definitely the medical industry, the social justice, wokeness industry, whatever we want to call that arm of definitely, that pretends not to be the ruling class, but is, right? Like these ideas of you have ancestral trauma, you are a traumatized person, you have no resilience, you have complex PTSD, all of it. And because of that, you need drugs. You're never going to get better, right?
Right.
None of it's healable. So absolutely. So that paradigm of illness was shattered for you or at least started to unravel.
It started to unravel. Yeah. I mean, I definitely remember that one of the things that I really wanted to get out of my ayahuasca experience was an answer as to why I have RA. How did this start? Where did it come from? Like, did I inherit it from the many experiences of bodily violation? Is it because of something in my family lineage, perhaps past lives? I know how insane that sounds, but I was such a healthy, happy, functional child, despite all the, constraints of my family constellation. I was a healthy child. We didn't go to the doctor. We couldn't afford to go to the doctor, but we didn't need to, for the most part, go to the doctor. And all of a sudden I was, freaking disabled and not even 30. So it had to be interrogated, like, where did this come from? And I did not get that answer in my first ayahuasca journey. I did not get anything related to my arthritis come through in my first ayahuasca journey. I got a lot of healing toward my relationship with my mother, though. So that was really cool. Got a lot of forgiveness from my beloved mother. And I never went back on psych meds after that. And as I progressed in my spiritual journey, I did so like I didn't do ayahuasca a ton of times. I did it like once in 2018, and then in the middle of COVID, I did it again. I actually went out to visit you, Mary Lou, and we had our fun Mexico experience. Right after I had just done another journey in Arizona with my shamanist, my ayahuasquera. And during that time again, I was asking, how do I live? Like, how do I change my life so that I'm not basically a drug addict, not a drug addict like a meth head, but totally addicted to these injections. Like, if I get off of them, I have arthritis again. How do I stop living this way? And that's not the message that came through. Instead, what came through was all these messages about the way I spend my life force energy. I was looking at my career and I was thinking about music and how much I loved playing the banjo. And why do I get to play the banjo as a 30-year-old? It's too late for me to ever be Joni Mitchell, like it's over for me. I'm never going to be a musician. And all these, messages that came through were about me learning to make instruments and to give other people the gift of music, because music fosters courage. It distracts us from our fear. And in COVID, the biggest thing I saw everywhere I looked was other people's fear was ruining their lives and ruining everyone else's lives too. And so, ayahuasca at that time gave me this very clear vision of her rewriting my DNA, editing my genomic sequence with the word courage in the
Nice.
double helix. And I remember thinking like, okay, so that's the next step. The next step is just to stop being afraid of what's going to happen next. And then I did another journey at the end of that summer, and I was asking, when do I quit my job and learn to make instruments? And the medicine was very clear. It was like right away, like tomorrow, bitch. So at that point, I quit. I put in my 2 weeks notice, and I signed up for woodworking school, and I moved away from DC and down to the Asheville area within a month of that experience and started woodworking school. So starting woodworking school in the middle, the pandemic is still going on. It's like 2021. Everybody's still wearing masks. I'm completely convinced that COVID is fake, that masks are fake, that none of this is real. And I'm still using the drugs because I don't know how to stop feeling pain while doing very physical labor. But because I had these experiences of basically God asking me to step up and have a little bit more courage and to be a little bit, dissociate from my constant worry and constant attempt to control my life, that made me think, actually, maybe my pain isn't the problem. Maybe being in pain is not actually a problem. Maybe my journey in this incarnation is to stay happy and to stay grateful and to stay devoted to God, no matter how much my body hurts, to just refuse to disconnect myself from the appreciation all around me, because I am so blessed. I have the best life. I have the best friends. I feel so joyful. Why would I disconnect myself from the opportunity to revel in that joy and that pleasure of being alive by reminding myself, I can't tie my shoes. I can't get up today because my back doesn't work. Like, I'm the one who's separating myself from the feeling of joy by being so fixated on everything that's wrong. And what if the experience of finding a cure for my arthritis is actually the big adventure that I've always wanted to go on? I talked about how I really wanted to go to Peru or somewhere, somewhere that they don't have refrigeration for my drugs. That was what I kept having a disconnect about, right? That I didn't want to be on the drugs because I wanted to travel. What if the experience of travel that I'm meant to have is the experience of exploring the world, looking for an alternative to drugs? What if that's the adventure of a lifetime? What if that's my hero's journey, my knight's quest is just like all the things I could try to stop being addicted to drugs? I could try acupuncture. I could try energy healing, sound frequency healing. I could get into, who the fuck knows? Like there's 1,000, I could go all around the world and get all sorts of different healing experiences from different healers in all sorts of traditions. And everyone could bring me closer to the experience of releasing this pain that doesn't belong to me and isn't who I am and isn't my identity. And that felt really good. Like, it felt so freeing. I felt so free. I felt like, yes, my pain is not a limitation. It's the doorway to my expansion. It is the biggest growth opportunity. It's going to make me who I am. It's going to turn me into a shaman. It's going to make me become the person that helps others heal. Like, what if I could give the gift of this joy to other people by just releasing once and for all that I'm a diseased person who's broken and needs someone else to intervene for me? What if nobody needs to save me? What if everything is fine?
Wow.
And so once that really landed, I knew I couldn't take the drugs anymore. And I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to, accepting all the sensations that came with that. Like, what if I develop such a high tolerance for the sensation of being in my own body that I don't experience pain as pain. I experienced it as as a messenger or as a guidepost, but I don't experience it as negative. I experience it. I'm embodied in it. I can name the color and the frequency and the texture of each of one of these sensations. If you ask me, what is the feeling of arthritis, I could sing you a song that is arthritis's song, but that isn't producing in me fear of the future, regret for the past, or self-hatred. What if what if that's the expansion? So I still had a couple injections left. I actually still have probably a dozen injections in my fridge that I just still haven't thrown away because I don't know, I guess if something really horrible happens and I get really bad symptoms again, I want to have the option to medicate them. I don't want to harm myself again. I don't want to experience disability again. But what happened when the last injection I took was in September of today is October 2023. So I took my last injection of Humira in September of 2022. And there were months where the sensation was very high and I would find myself needing to take a lot more naps. I would take, and I've never, I'm an insomniac. I've never been a person who could take a nap in the daytime. But I would lay down on the floor of the wood shop and take a nap right there behind my bench because the experience of pain that I was in was too high sensation for me to be conscious for. And sweat a lot. I would do sauna and cold plunge, and I would eat a metric fuck ton of CBD gummies, which honestly didn't interrupt the pain, but they definitely changed my state of mind and allowed me to feel a higher degree of tolerance for the pain and sensation that I was experiencing. I did a lot of circling, which is a relational meditation practice where you come into presence with other people and basically, take ownership of your experience and inquire about others' experiences. I did a lot of hypnosis. I hypnotized myself every night. And I would, go into this state of hypnosis and repeat loving affirmations to myself about how perfect my body was and how capable it was of healing. I would start each day looking in the mirror at my naked body, doing lymphatic drainage exercises with a dry brush over my naked body and saying to myself over and over again, thank you, body, for being the body that my soul chose to come into this incarnation and experience this perfect life. Thank you for the healing opportunities that you provide for me. Thank you for always having my back. Yeah, stuff like that.
Oh, and diet?
I fucked around with diet.
Yeah.
I've tried every type of diet. I definitely played around with Ayurvedic diets in the past, ketogenic diets. But in the past 2 years, when I really started stretching out the medication doses, I went full carnivore for a while and only ate beef. Beef, salt, water, and honey, and a little fruit. That did not last long because I love carbohydrates. I do love beef, but I don't have the budget to eat a ribeye every single meal every single day, and I can't eat nothing but ground beef. It's just not realistic. So
well, you have
now
to think of your quality of life as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now I just eat whatever the fuck I want. I don't hypnotize myself anymore. I don't say affirmations in the mirror. I still love that stuff. I could do it from time to time, but I don't rely on any kind of strict regimen or protocol anymore because I really just don't experience my pain in the same way. And I do get pain sometimes, but it's not confined to my joints. It definitely feels musculoskeletal. It doesn't feel like arthritis. I do get swelling sometimes in joint places, but I'm 36. At this point, it's pretty logical that I would get joint swelling from here and there. And I work at a physical job. So if I wake up with swollen knees, I don't know, could it be because I hauled around half a fucking tree yesterday? Maybe.
Right. Wow. And then how have your beliefs changed? Do you still carry any illness identities as part of your beliefs about yourself?
I truly do not. I think that everything that comes up in my body to experience or heal is a message, and all of the experiences of illness, whether they are colds, flus, rashes, unless it's like an injury or an insect bite, or I brushed up against poison ivy, I see every illness that I encounter as psychic in origin.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might sound crazy, but I just really see a connection between what's going on in my life and the stories that I tell myself in my brain, and then what manifests in my body pretty much as an obvious and direct response to that. So for instance, one of the things that somebody else could call arthritis would be something like, I had this sensation in April that I twisted my ankle, and I didn't twist my ankle, and I just had this very difficult pain in my right ankle, and it would last for a few days, and I would even wear an ankle brace, and then it would just go away, but then it would resurface like 2 months later, for no discernible reason. And what I came up with at the time was that in April, when that first started manifesting, was, I don't have a clear idea of the way forward. I don't know what I'm doing with my career after I graduate from woodworking school. I live in a state of fear about money and what choice is the first choice to make. So if you put it in metaphorical terms, it would make sense that if I don't know where to step forward next, if I don't know if the choices I'm making, I can bear the weight of them, then of course my ankle would hurt. My right ankle, the part of my, the left part of the brain is the analytical and decisive part, that's always acting in a logical way, and that controls the right side of your body. So of course it would make sense that my right ankle would be inflamed right now and would hurt. But it doesn't make sense that, that right ankle inflammation is because of rheumatoid factor and C-reactive protein attacking my body, attacking itself. Like, that doesn't make sense. My body never attacks it myself. My body is so singularly focused on thriving that everything it does is in service to my healing. And so the pain itself, the ankle pain, is in service to the healing. The ankle pain says, hey, what are we doing when we graduate, bitch? Like, what are we doing? Like, you want to figure this out? Like, maybe pay attention to, what's next. Sure enough, like, the ankle pain goes away. I get a job. I provide for myself. Everything starts to mellow out, and the ankle pain goes away.
Fascinating. Oh, there's so much. We're reaching our time limit here, and thank you so much for telling this story. And it opens up many, many topics that I'd love to discuss further in our podcast about belief and absolutely, like and one thing that's coming up for me is I walk in a lot of worlds, and I am trained as a Western medical provider, and I also am not really allegiant to that belief system, even though I'm very proficient in it's like I'm very good at that second language, like I understand that culture. I understand that. And if people believe that, I'm excellent at providing that paradigm to them. And I'm much more interested in what you're describing, which is, what does the illness mean to the individual, and how is the gem of the root of that's at the root of that healing in that person's story and your understanding. So thank you for that. And anything else you'd like to share before we move to a word from our sponsor?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that throughout this podcast, you and I will both have many opportunities to delve deeper into our healing journeys, because how could I possibly in 1 hour explain 10 years worth of healing? Because from the minute that I got diagnosed, I was trying to figure out how to release this and how to become a person that wasn't, chronically ill. So I guess there's nothing else that I need to add, because I feel complete in this moment that the meandering story, the somewhat rambling story that this has been, will will continue to develop as we continue these conversations. But yeah, that was pretty much like the long and the short of it. 10 years of healing, and from 5 different autoimmune diseases and several different mental health disorders to feeling like the healthiest and most vital I've ever been. Certainly the most creative and generative that I've ever been.
Well, I want to testify to the truth of the story that you're telling, because I want people to know that I have very recently seen you play the banjo very skillfully with your healthy fingers.
Yeah.
I have relatively recently watched you learn to surf and
That's
run back
right.
to that, get pounded by the waves, like really joyfully experience that incredible physical intensity of learning how to surf. You are one of the most joyful, adaptable, fun people that I have ever hung out with. It's always a joy to be in community with you and to travel with you, that you are easygoing. So I would not view you as someone like, oh, Jocelyn and all her mental illness. She's such she's like bringing her mental turmoil to all of her interactions. So you're a legitimately joyful, adaptable, resilient person. So
thank you.
Absolutely, you model healing. This is it's more than the words you're saying, it's the life you're living, and thank you for that.
Yeah, I think the thing that I try not to feel shame around the last 10 years of identifying with all these illnesses, because for a long time I did identify with them. I try not to feel shame, but when it comes up, it's because I feel like I allowed myself to play the role of the victim and to expect others to feel pity for me and to take care of me because of the disabilities that I had and how I wasn't like other people. And the way that my mentality separated me from other people. When I identified as a victim, it was so difficult for me to connect with others because I felt bitter. I felt like they didn't understand me, and they could never appreciate the struggle that I was going through. They could never accommodate me enough. And so I was holding myself apart from love in so many ways by identifying as diseased. And I was really holding myself apart from my own power and my own sense of personal liberation, because for me, one of the biggest values that I have is feeling free and being free. And we live in a free will universe, and I was out here believing that because of what had happened to me, that I was less free than other people. And I wasted so much time acting less free than other people, acting hamstrung and, bound by these rules. Like, well, I can't do that. I can't do what you do because of my disease. So I really love hearing those reflections because, I see you as someone who also loves freedom and who doesn't have a victim mentality. And there's definitely been times when I felt insecure around being with people like you, because I thought, gosh, is she going to think that I'm like such a downer because I'm so I'm so like committed to being accommodated, and I need so much from others. I need so much. Anyway, I love hearing that. It makes me feel really good about myself.
Well,
that you see
love
me
it.
that way.
Well, you are that way, and it's you're a joy to be around, and people need to know healing is possible, and that you
Yes.
are feeling more and more vibrant and
Yes.
better and better, and you've freed yourself from the pharmaceutical industry as well, which we all know doesn't offer healing. It offers a lifetime of drug dependence for people.
Exactly. Yes, and financial depletion.
Yes, and lots of true financial freedom, right? That you, like you said, you're tied to a corporate job, so the drugs will be covered by your insurance. Yeah, the loss of freedom that way. So it's wonderful to hear your story. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou, for being such a good interviewer.
Well, thank you. Should we cut to a word from our sponsor?
Oh, yes, we have to have a word from our sponsor. How would we sponsor this?
Do you experience any or all of the following on an occasional or ongoing basis? Joint pain, headache, itching, acne, constipation, dry eyes, erectile dysfunction, bloating, heartburn, hunger, restless legs, and feelings of being too hot or too cold? If so, you may be suffering from embodiment. Experts agree that having a body is the #1 cause of human suffering and death. Scholars have wondered since time immemorial as to what exactly is the point of somatic experiencing anyway. You've tried pornography, religion, overeating, alcohol, weekly shamanic journeying, ayahuasca, mushrooms, CBD, THC, Delta 8, amphetamines, antidepressants, and other forms of compulsive dissociation, and still your symptoms of embodiment return. Thankfully, science can now offer you permanent relief. Ask your doctor if uploading your consciousness into the internet is right for you. Say goodbye to embodiment and hello to the security and comfort of virtual reality. Side effects may include loss of the following: pleasure, curiosity, wonderment, appreciation, excitement, and everything that makes life meaningful.
That's it.
That's it.
Sign me up, baby.
I look forward to more and more episodes where we explore how we heal.
I do too. Yes, I can't wait to share these journeys with our audience. And also I look forward to inviting our listeners to be on our podcast and to be interviewed. If you have a story of healing outside of the medical paradigm, then we would love to talk to you.
Absolutely. Great. Until we meet again.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.